Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Java webinar, Pitfalls and Solutions, where we will try to answer all of your questions. Before beginning, please note the QA period will be held at the end of the webinar, but please do not hesitate to ask any questions during our presentation. You can find the QA icon on the top right-hand corner of your screen. We'll be emailing everyone a link to the webinar once available. Before I let you go, let me introduce today's speakers, Patrick Hamou and Andrew Keating. Please enjoy, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Stephen. So I will present myself. Patrick Hamou, I'm CEO and founder at the RENAPS Group. 20 years of experience in Oracle and the IT field. I've been very close always to the Oracle licensing rules and that particular subject. So very happy to be here today with Andrew.
Hey, Patrick. It's funny how we say over 20 years. We don't want to say how many exactly.
No.
I don't think we'll ever say over 30 because that sounds too much.
Exactly, better not to.
So, morning everyone. So, Andrew Keating. I've been in Oracle licensing for a couple of decades. Started off as a client, an Oracle client, then an Oracle employee, an Oracle partner, and been an independent licensing consultant for the last few years. And that's where I work with RENAPS on many occasions. So let's get this started.
So we'll
Patrick.
present. Yes. So today's subject will do a quick overview of who we are, RENAPS. Then we'll quickly dig into Java licensing, understanding what's different types of Java technologies, background, digging into licenses and different subscriptions. We'll look into possibilities of alternatives to the Oracle JDK, conclusions, and open it up for questions. But as Stephen mentioned through the whole presentation, don't hesitate to click on that Q&A button to ask in the chat questions that we'll be happy to answer. So RENAPS, founded in 2001, we're an Oracle managed services organization with a focus on several subjects, including upgrades, migrations, and of course, licensing, Oracle licensing compliance, advisory support services. RENAPS is a group of two companies, the RENAPS technology that's here today presenting this webinar surrounding Oracle Java licensing compliance, and the other division being focused and specialized on IT staffing, but mostly for Canada. So I just wanted to let you know that we're pleased to offer today a 1-hour consultation with one of our Java licensing experts, being able to answer one-on-one questions, understanding if there are any issues or concerns that you'd like to address. So we're offering that 1 hour. All you have to do after the webinar is just send us an email at info@renaps.com with simply your name, company, and email address, and we'll reach out to you so we could organize that 1 hour one-on-one call.
Okay, so judging by the interest in this topic, Java licensing is a bit of a hot topic. And it has been for the last couple of years, and even more so since January when Oracle decided to change the rules again. So the idea of today's presentation is to give you a bit of an understanding of the history and the current state, potential risks, and solutions to those risks. So the first item is really just to level set, make sure everybody understands. There's a lot of terminology that we use when we talk about Java, JDK, JRE, JVM, and so on. So just to clear that up right out of the gate. So a JVM is where a Java application runs, right? And so the whole idea of write once, run anywhere is that your application can run in a JVM on Windows or on Linux or and so on. And so that's the Java virtual machine that's running that allows an application to execute. The JRE is what allows your operating system to create a JVM, right? So it's class libraries, supporting files, and so on, everything that you need to be able to run a JVM to run your application. And then the JDK is all of the tools on top of that that allow you to compile code, debug code, execute Java code, and so on. So all of that is contained within the JDK, right? So when you download the JDK, you'll have the JDK, the development tools in there. You also have the runtime tools, which will allow you to create a JVM, which only exists at runtime. Okay, so just kind of clarifying some of those terms. So since Java 11, so a few years back, Oracle has decided to only distribute the JDK, so that you can no longer download just a JRE. Right? So you have the JDK, and then you use it to run your applications. In terms of licensing, Oracle, it's the same thing, whether we're talking about JDK or JRE. So that was a bit of confusion for a while. I'm only using the JRE, so I don't need a license because that only applies to JDK. So just to clear that up, JDK covers everything that you need within Java, and the license applies to JDK, even if you're only using part of that development kit. Okay. So moving on to a bit of the history behind Java. So Java's been around for almost 30 years, which in IT is pretty good going. You can't say that for many things these days that are still used and still evolving after 30 years. So why do we have these red versions 1, 8, 11, 17, 21? Those are what are known as long-term support, LTS. So it's a common approach within open source. If you think of Linux or other projects, the project releases a stable version that they call the long-term support, and they'll provide updates for that version for a long time. So it's supported for a long time. In between, there are intermediate releases, which give a bit of a preview to new features, improvements, and so on that'll be coming up in the next long-term release. But those intermediate releases don't get any updates, right? So they're not receiving all of the security updates and so on that the LTS versions will. So just sort of to help you understand, and that's why we see a lot of version 8, a lot of version 11, and version 17, right? So those are the three main the LTS versions that are out there today. Version 21 will come out in September this year. So currently at the moment, version 20 is the latest version. The next LTS version is coming out later on in the year. So surprisingly, we see a lot of version 8 and version 11 in customers these days. So why is that? We'll get into that a bit later on. But those are dating back to 2014. So to give you an idea, that's Windows 10 was in 2017. Right? So we're talking Windows 8, that kind of era. So if you're looking at any versions before 8, then it's getting pretty ancient now. Even versions 8, it's kind of pretty old technology. And we'll get into the reasons why people are still on those older versions. A bit of trivia for you. So James Gosling was the founder or the creator of Java. He's credited with creating it. It was perhaps him and a team, but he's a Canadian. So he worked in he went to Calgary University and then worked at the university as well. So there's a bit of Canadian credit in there. And so originally, the notion of Java that write once, run anywhere was so that they could migrate clients from Perk workstations to VAX, right? So to very old platforms. So the idea was that that same application would be able to run on one platform, and then they could move them over to a new platform. And so that's kind of the thinking behind it. It then became popular for a while with interactive TV projects. So, TV interfaces and things. Everyone was building different hardware for their TVs and desktop, the set-top appliances and things. And so Java was used initially, sort of the earlier versions in the late 90s, early 2000s for those kind of initiatives. So in the earlier versions, so versions 1 through to 5, and it gets confusing because all of the versions start with 1 when you look at the command line. So if you actually look at the download, or if you run a command java-version, it'll tell you it's 1.8 or 1.11. So it's always 1 point something. There's open source reasons behind that, but anyway, so just so that you know, 1.8 is actually version 8, it's Java 8. So when Java was originally released by Sun, it was under their proprietary licensing. So there was the Java enterprise systems and things like that. And so companies were purchasing the license from Sun directly. In 2006, they decided to open up Java and make it an open source project under GPL v2. So it's an open source license, basically meaning that anyone can use it, can reuse it, can redistribute it, as long as they don't change the original source code, or they have to give it back to the community and so on. So Sun was very much into open source. There was MySQL, it was at Sun, and OpenOffice and OpenSolaris. So it was very much within Sun's ethics, if you like. In 2009, Oracle acquired Sun for about $5.5 billion. And so it was a big purchase. Originally, it looked like they wanted the hardware. So the Sun hardware, they were still making Intel and Spark platforms. They also had MySQL, so that kind of took a competitor off the table and brought that in under Oracle's supervision. Interestingly, James Gosling, so the creator of Java, quit within the first year. So Oracle acquired Sun, and then the founder of Java decides to quit. And in an interview at the time, he said, nobody wanted to talk to me about technology. They only wanted me to talk to lawyers about the licensing. And fair enough, within that first year, Oracle sued Google for $8 billion for their use of Java within the Android platform. So it looked pretty clear what the plan was from the start. It was to monetize Java. As within a year or so, Oracle quietly changed that license to download Java. So going from the very open source GPL to Oracle's own binary code license. We'll get into the details of that later, but most people didn't notice. They just carried on downloading Java under the notion that Java was free, it was open source, and everything was fine. As Oracle started losing their battle against Google, so 2016, 17, 18, the cases started getting thrown out of the different courts within the US legal system, so the district courts and the federal courts. Oracle decided to transition Java from the BCL to an OTN, Oracle Technology Network license. So again, most people just didn't read the license and carried on downloading. But that change in 2019 was a pretty big change in licensing, and we'll get into the details shortly. After that, in 2021, Oracle introduced the no-fee terms and conditions license for version 17, which is another more open license. We'll get into the details again. But at that same time, so around about 2020, 2021, 2022, Oracle, well, they definitively lost the lawsuit against Google, so they weren't going to get any money from there. Instead, they started creating dedicated Java sales teams, which as clients you probably had calls from. Before then, so in the years before, Java was sold as a subscription through the middleware teams. So they were responsible for that, but no one really sold it because no one was asking to buy it. They weren't necessarily compensated very well. It wasn't in their interest to be selling Java. So it was just an item on a list that someone could buy, but very few people did. Governments, municipalities, and so on tended to buy it, but no one else. So 2020, 2021, Oracle ramps up the sales and telling people that they need to start buying licenses. So those licenses are now subscriptions. It's no longer a perpetual license. It's a yearly subscription. And they were being very aggressive about it. So they would call into a client telling them that they needed to buy a subscription. The client would say, okay, so we need 10 processes or 20 processes. And sales wouldn't take their order until they proved why it was only 20 and why it wasn't 100 or 200 and so on. And very often it got into discussions around VMware licensing and sales insisting that they needed Java for all of the servers in their VMware park. So that discussion now goes away with Oracle's great idea that we don't even need to know about how many processes or how many named users you have. Let's just count all of the employees, all of the part-time employees, all of the contractors, and so on. Let's add that number up, and you just pay for Java for all of them. So it makes it very simple. It's just that for most clients, it's increased the bill as much as tenfold. So that was a big shock in January when Oracle made that change. Okay. So that's kind of the history and the evolution. So going back to the details of that binary code license. So if you remember, it was versions, we're here, so versions 6, 7, and the early updates to version 8. So the language in there is very vague. It talks about the license applying to general purpose desktop computers and servers. Since when has a server ever been general purpose? I mean, a desktop maybe, but a server, you don't just have general purpose servers. So that's problematic. And then they introduced the notion of commercial features. So these aren't features that you have to go back to Oracle and request or download separately. These are just functionalities within the Java development kit that a developer may use, that an administrator may use, may activate at some point, and that all of a sudden, this license is no longer valid. Again, it goes into very wordy explanations of where this license applies. So very specifically around Blu-ray disc devices and so on, but then storage systems and any other related systems are excluded. So the language in it is problematic, and different clients that I've spoken to have had their legal teams look at this and they'll come up with different conclusions. So some say, you know what, it's way too vague for Oracle to ever pursue this legally. So we're just going to consider that it's free. The other end of the scale, you have clients saying, you know what, this is vague enough for Oracle to interpret it however they want, so we're in trouble. So I would suggest each organization review this, come up with your own position. If you're using software that's on the BCL, understand what it really means for you. Then they move to the OTN license, the Oracle Technology Network license. This was much clearer. And they added restrictions in there. So you could only use this license if it was for personal use, development use, Oracle approved product use or Oracle Cloud use. So all of a sudden, production use of your Java application that isn't an Oracle application and isn't on Oracle Cloud is no longer covered by the OTN license. So this is from 2019, so 4 years ago now. So as soon as that came out, those releases basically needed a subscription for you to use them, because otherwise in production, if it wasn't an Oracle application or you weren't on Oracle Cloud, otherwise you didn't respect the terms of the OTN license. So that became a surprise for a lot of clients that started looking into this year or last year, suddenly realizing that we haven't been compliant for a while, without really understanding or realizing it.
For reference, that term, that type of license is between 2019, so versions 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 included are the versions.
Yep, right? It was specifically at version 8, release 200, update 211. So even though you're on version 8, you're using it fine. All of a sudden, to download and update to that version, you suddenly went from the BCL to the OTN. And so most people, let's face it, it's the IT team that's going to fetch the Java updates. Are they really going to read the license behind each update to see if there's a difference? Are they really going to download it and send it to the legal team and so on? No. So it ended up kind of flying under the radar for a while, until Oracle started contacting clients and saying, you should be paying us for this. So then last year, 2021, Oracle came out with the no fee terms and conditions. So this is much more open. You can use it in production. There's no limitation on features. There's no commercial features in there, and so on. So it sounds like it's very open. The definition of running the program for your own personal use or internal business operations, maybe internal business operations might have some lawyers scratching their heads as to what that really means. So everyone says, great, version 17 is free. Well, actually, it's free for a while. So what Oracle says in the frequently asked questions for version 17 is that version 17 is released under the NFTC license, and it will be. So all of the updates will be free for version 17 until the next long-term support version comes out. So in September this year, version 21 comes out. Then there's a countdown. So there's 12 months from here. At this point, so 2024 in September, any updates to version 17 will no longer be under the NFTC license. They're going to be under the OTN license. So you're going to need a subscription to be able to access those licenses again. So, sorry, those updates again. And so that'll be the same going forward, version 21. So as soon as version 25 comes out, 1 year later, version 21 is going to fall under the OTN license. So yes, version 17 and above are free if you can keep up with the release cadence of the Java versions. So 17 will be free until September next year. After that, if you're still on 17 and you need the updates, you need a subscription. So it's free, yes, but, and then you have to look into the details. This is Oracle's way of trying to get everybody to keep up, right? There's so many clients that are still on version 8, version 11. So this is kind of their stick to try and keep everybody updating and keeping up with the new releases. Then we get to Java with Oracle products. So Oracle products that require Java. So whether it's WebLogic, Oracle Forms, Oracle eBusiness Suite, and so on, don't need a separate Java subscription for the Java that's used by that product. Okay. So you can get the updates regardless of whether it's under the BCL, the OTN, the NFTC. You'll be able to get the updates for your Java that's used by an Oracle product. Okay, so it allows you to download an update as long as it's only for that Oracle product. So it's not a carte blanche, right? So it's not, doesn't allow you just to go and get all of the versions of Java and use them for everything else within your organization. You can download the specific version that your product needs to run. And you must have a current support contract for that other product to give you access to the updates for Java. Okay, so yes, Java is free if you're running an Oracle product, but under the specific conditions that it's only used for that product and you keep your support for that product. Strangely, all of that is detailed in an Oracle support note. Now, Oracle support notes change over time, and they sometimes even disappear completely. And they're not actually part of the contractual definition of program documentation. And so if you go back to your Oracle terms and conditions, you'll find program documentation, and it says all of the documentation that you find at this specific URL, so doc.oracle.com. So it doesn't cover Oracle support notes. So I'm not suggesting that this is a licensing trap that Oracle's laying, but it's just one of those gray areas that Oracle likes to introduce so that it's not nice and clear and easy to understand. So if you're relying on this logic and this support note for your licensing position, then I strongly suggest that you download it from Oracle support, that you PDF it, you take screenshots with the dates, and your login to Oracle support and everything else, and you put that in a safe place in case you need it later on. Okay. So, yeah.
And what happens is that many customers are actually right now running in older versions of Java. So we see a lot of version 8, so that dates 2014. And by running on these older versions, what we are seeing is that there's a lot of vulnerabilities that could be part of your Java version. So there's a website, by the way, called CVE Details. We can share the screenshot of that. That website, could be a good reference as a starting point to get to know a bit more about your particular Java version and the vulnerabilities that you might be having in your environment. So from running older version of Java, you're facing two possibilities. On one side, update to the latest. By updating, this means that you would also have to subscribe in terms of licensing, Java licensing, or simply not do the update, but then inherit and continue to live with those vulnerabilities. So another aspect just to keep in mind is that running older version of Java might also sometimes mean, depending on what that product is, means also running on older versions of operating system and other components in the environment that are made to be working together in terms of a package somehow. But that also opens older versions of operating system, other potential security risks where CVE details could also be a good starting point to get to understand the situation and at least be aware of it to start putting together a plan forward.
Good points. And we do see a lot of older versions around clients.
Yes.
And one of the questions regularly is, Oracle saying, well, clients saying, well, how would Oracle know which version I'm using? Right, so that's, is it really such a big deal? So the default location to download Java in the last few years, I would say 12, 15 years. No, sorry. So since the Sun acquisition, has been java.com. And so, if you search on the internet for Java, that's the first thing that's going to come up. That's where you're going to go to download your version of Java. That's what 99% of people do. So java.com is owned by Oracle. And so by clicking on the download Java, so as you can see at the bottom here, it says, by downloading Java, you acknowledge that you read and accepted the terms of the OTN license. And in that OTN license, that's the one that says that you need a subscription if this is for production, basically. So this click-through license that nobody was really reading, very often, depending on the versions, you have to log in with your oracle.com account to be able to download. So Oracle has this great database now, presumably, of oracle.com accounts and emails and IP addresses of the different versions that are being downloaded. It makes it very easy for them just to go through and say, well, look, we can see at this particular site, you see that all of the end users are downloading because, or all of the IT administrators are downloading Java. So it's obviously in use and it's this version and they don't have a subscription. It's an easy target.
Particularly, particularly for public companies where it's, they are very known and, it's easy to know also the number of employees, how big the company is. So it makes it easy for them to know where they should knock at the door.
Yeah, so now with the change to employee-based licensing, as you said, it's easy for Oracle to know how many employees there are. Just go and look on the website, look in the annual report. And now they don't even have to worry about how many CPUs and how many named users and so on. They just say, great, you're downloading this, so you should have a subscription. That's the number of employees you have, is the total amount that you should be paying us. They don't even need to talk to the client to get any of that information. So what we're seeing is very official looking emails going straight to CIOs and IT managers saying, this is what you're using, this is the amount that you should be paying, contact us or we'll contact you. So they're putting a lot of pressure on because they have all that information in the back pocket. So for clients that already have Oracle products, which is probably most people on the call, it's very easy for Oracle just to include Java in an audit. So where they would normally do an Oracle database audit or a middleware audit, now they'll just add Java into the scope. So when you get that audit letter, it'll say, we're auditing your use of Oracle database and options and Java. And so all of a sudden, they've opened up that door and find out what you're using and whether or not you should be paying for a subscription. At the moment, we haven't seen any discovery tools from Oracle for Java. So we haven't seen them going into clients and insisting that clients run tools across desktops and servers to discover which versions of Java they're using, where, and so on. It seems as though they're relying on the information that they already have and the number of employees just to come up with a big number. And that's the starting point of the discussion. So the audit risk is real. And it's, so we've covered everything that's there. And so moving on to this employee-based licensing now. It's a published price list. You can't purchase Java through resellers, through anyone else. You have to go directly to Oracle. And they have dedicated Java teams. And it's an annual subscription, so it's not a perpetual license acquisition. And so these numbers have got pretty big with this recent change. So for some organizations that were paying, that had gone through the effort of consolidating their Java usage, so removing Java from all of the desktops that didn't need it, and removing Java from the servers that didn't need it, so only having 10 or 20 servers and only having 100 desktops, all of that no longer makes any difference to the calculations for Oracle. So they're saying it's all based on employees, part-time employees, temporary employees, contractors, outsourcers, and so on, to come up with that number. At the moment, Oracle is allowing people that have subscriptions on Named User Plus and on Processor metrics, they're allowing them to renew with those same metrics. I don't know how long that's going to last, and whether or not changing the numbers, if you say we no longer need 200 processors, we only need 100 this year, whether or not they'll accept that or whether they'll force their clients into this new metric. It's pretty likely. If the number's going down, then they're not going to be happy. The important thing as well with an annual subscription is you have no long-term security, right? So you have no guarantee what the price is going to be next year when you need to renew. You have no guarantee what the pricing model is going to look like. Is it going to be employee? Is it going to be something else next time around? What will the terms and conditions be next time around? So that's kind of something that needs to be reviewed every single year going forward with this kind of subscription, which is a lot of work for some clients. Forward. So what are the alternatives? So just to explain Oracle JDK and OpenJDK. So in a similar way to Linux and other open source projects, there's kind of an owner of the project, and then there are other organizations and companies that create distributions. Right, so if we think of Linux, we have linux.org, which manages the kernel project. Right, so they manage that core source code, and then vendors such as Red Hat, Oracle, SUSE, Ubuntu, and so on, they take that source code and they create a distribution of it. So it's still the same code that everyone has, but people add on their own special source around that. So Oracle does the same with OpenJDK. So it's the OpenJDK code that's released free and unbranded with no support. So it's just an open source project. The code is put out there. Oracle doesn't provide support for previous versions of the OpenJDK. So if you're on release 17 and version 18 comes out, well, they're not going to update the OpenJDK version of the previous version. So they'll only do it with their branded version of Oracle JDK. So they have a distribution of OpenJDK, which is called Oracle JDK, which is what everyone's been downloading by default for the last decade. Well, pretty much everyone. So it's a branded commercial build, which has optimizations and extensions which aren't included in OpenJDK. So Oracle's committed to getting away. Sorry, Oracle has committed to moving away from that. So OpenJDK and Oracle JDK at some point in the future should be the same. So they're no longer putting Oracle-specific code into Oracle JDK. It certainly wasn't the case in the past. So if you want support, security updates, and so on, then you pay for a subscription. So that's with Oracle JDK, but it's the same with other JDKs as well. At the end of the day, the people that are creating those distributions, they need to make money out of this somehow. So there's a support model around that as well. So Oracle's long-term support, so those major versions, 8, 11, 17, so on, they fall under a 5-year premier support and a 3-year extended support. So as long as you're paying for the subscriptions, then you can have support for that version for 8 years if it's the Oracle JDK, but not for the OpenJDK. So just to give sort of a graphical representation, if you're on pure OpenJDK, then the only way to get any updates, whether it's security updates or anything else, is to upgrade Java every 6 months. So that can be a pretty challenging release cycle to follow. Whereas if you're on the commercial Oracle JDK version, they release the major versions every 2 years, and then they will support those major versions, the LTS versions, for 8 years in total. And so you're kind of paying for that stability of a version and the support and updates over a much longer period. So OpenJDK is just the source code. So you can go and download it, but most people don't have the technical skills to build a distribution, something useful that they can actually use to run Java applications. Right? So OpenJDK, yes, anyone can go and get it, but you have to know what to do with it. So there are lots of other OpenJDK-based alternatives. So they take that code, they put their own branding around it, they support their own versions. Very often it's the same sort of model. There's a free version and then a paid support version. In the same way that Linux does, and organizations use Linux, whether it's Red Hat, Oracle, IBM, and so on. So those, a few of those OpenJDK-based alternatives, Azure, Eclipse, IBM, Amazon, Microsoft, Alibaba, SAP, Red Hat. So what tends to happen is vendors such as IBM, Amazon, Microsoft say, you know what, we don't want to be dependent on Oracle. We don't want to pay anything to Oracle. So we'll take the OpenJDK and we'll build our own for our own applications. So let's say IBM's Tivoli needs Java. IBM supplies its own JDK. SAP needs Java. So SAP supplies their own SAP JDK. So most of the organizations are interested in Java to get away from Oracle and to support the other applications. It's not sort of their core activity. The exception to that is Azure, which isn't really a kind of a household name, but they've been around for a very long time and they're only focused on Java support and Java consulting. And they're actually one of the OpenJDK project leads. So different versions, so version 8, 9, 10, and so on, different organizations will volunteer to be stewards of that version to maintain and to provide updates and so on. So Azure's very much involved in that, and they provide their own innovations as well around garbage collection and compilation. So the big question, should we be paying for Java? And if your application is mission critical and you need support from someone, then probably yes. Whether it's Oracle or someone else, if you're relying on it and it's a critical component, pretty much like you do for Windows or for Linux and so on. So that support subscription to give you the updates, to give you the peace of mind that there's someone to contact when you need it. If you decide that you don't need it, fine. You can. There are free versions that are available from many of those vendors. So great. So it means it's free or it's cheap. So for why am I stuck paying Oracle subscriptions, or why should I be paying Oracle for a subscription? So as I mentioned, Oracle over the years had Oracle specific code in the Oracle JDK. So around garbage collection and performance, so that the Oracle JDK worked a lot better than the others in the past, in versions 7 and 8 and so on. So Oracle JDK was a bit of the reference. Performance was better, and they added extra functionality in there. So if your application was built on Oracle JDK and used that Oracle JDK specific functionality, well, that means that you're going to have a harder time moving to someone else's JDK because they didn't have that functionality. So this is why a lot of clients are stuck on versions 7 and 8 and so on, because they have legacy applications that the team doesn't know how to modify, or has tried modifying and failed, or is no longer supported by a vendor from whom they bought the application in the first place. So that's why a lot of people are stuck on older versions. The migration to a newer or to a different JDK can be an easy project, or it can be a huge endeavor, depending on how the application was built and whether or not it was using Oracle JDK specific features and functionalities. And in every case, you need to do performance testing. You're switching out an essential foundation, a building block of your application. At a minimum, you want to do performance testing and some functionality testing. And that's where a lot of the clients have these old applications that they don't even know how to test anymore. They weren't documented. It works and they don't want to touch it. It works and it's on an old system that's in a VM because the hardware is no longer supported and so on. So we see a lot of that. And very often it's because we're waiting for it's supposed to be being replaced by a new package and so on, but that drags on for years and years, and it's still hanging around. So we don't necessarily need to go through every step, but just to give you an idea that working out whether or not you need to pay for a subscription can be a bit of a puzzle. So really, if you're using Java 8 update 211 and above, then it was the OTN license agreement. And if you're using that in production, you need a subscription for it. BCL license, it depends on your interpretation and how much you want to go up against Oracle to justify your interpretation of it. All right, step out of the way of the boxes there. And so at the end of the day, you either come to the conclusion that you don't need a subscription, or you need an employee-based subscription if it's new, or you can continue to pay by named user plus or processes. So all of that is if you're staying on Oracle JDK, and for whatever reason you can't move off, or you decide that it's too big a project to do. So what are the next steps? What do we do? Patrick, what do we do?
Good question. There's actually, 3 paths forward, but one starting point in any case, definitely an inventory. First, get to know your environment, get to know how many Java deployments are out there and what type of application, your versions, etc. So having first a vision of what you currently have, definitely a good first step. After which, depending on the flow chart we saw before and the criticality of the application, maybe one avenue would simply be, okay, maybe we should pay Oracle because we need that particular Oracle JDK version, and no need, or you want maybe to avoid a migration project or some other bigger steps that might come from not moving. I mean, from moving to another platform. So paying could be one avenue, simple one. We would definitely recommend to at least assess the possibility or the impact of potentially moving JDK, if that is a feasibility, if you choose not to pay for any particular reason. That would mean review potential other vendors, see what could be migrated, check the impact, and plan a migration project. So that could also be an avenue. Third solution, not do anything. So hide under a rock and simply choose not to change anything. That could potentially be risky, but still, I mean, some organization might simply choose not to do anything, maybe think that that system might be decommissioned soon, and there's, the risk is lower because it's not used much. But we would definitely advise, at minimum, to assess your risk and the financial exposure of the Java system, Java applications running in your environments, making sure that they are known, and definitely that C-level executives are also aware of the risks associated with Java in the environment. This definitely needs to be a part of the plan, because if there is a choice not to do anything, well, at least C-level and the organization should be aware and accept that risk, because you definitely don't want to be the one that did not, got the organization aware of the situation and get to an actual audit and get to a difficult situation later on.
Yeah, you don't want to be the one that decides that you don't apply security updates either.
Also, that's yes.
Yeah. If we think back to Equifax and people like that, where they just hadn't applied updates. So going back to the first step that you mentioned, Patrick, having an inventory of the Java. I mean, that sounds easy enough, right? Surely you know what you're running, but it's always more complicated than that. So even clients that have SAM tools that think they have all of their software assets under control, what we're seeing is that it very rarely goes down to the level of which version of Java it needs. So it's very easy to run a scan across servers and across desktops and to have a big Excel spreadsheet saying, here are all of the versions that we have. That's great. But that doesn't tell you which applications need those versions. So somebody has to work out on this desktop or on this server, which version is used by which application. And then go into that application and say, okay, does this come from an external vendor? Does that external vendor support me moving to another JDK? Or are we stuck on that specific version of JDK and that specific distribution? So it seems easy enough to have an inventory, but it's actually pretty hard to dig down into the details, especially when you have desktops with multiple versions on them and application servers with multiple applications and multiple versions of JDKs across them. It's pretty rare to see that all of those dependencies are actually documented somewhere. So it starts out as kind of a discovery, a documentation project that then gives you the portrait of, okay, these are the versions that we have for these applications. Are these applications going away anytime soon? Do we still need them? Can they be migrated, updated, and so on? So it's it might sound easy, but it's not.
Steve, RENAPS helps customers in this process. So we do help going through those inventories, assessing situations, providing recommendations and best path forward for your different types of systems. So this is definitely something we always are here to help should you need any assistance with this.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions, I think you can use the Q&A button up at the top. and we'll do our best to answer them. Give you a couple of minutes for that. I mean, really, it's been the last couple of years that clients have woken up to Java, the last 2-3 years maybe, and realized that it might be a bit of a risk in their environment. And only sort of the last year or so that people have started looking at alternatives, or you know, obviously with Oracle knocking at the door asking for money on subscriptions, that pushes people into action. But usually it's better to do it before Oracle comes.
Definitely. And yes, we've seen definitely also Oracle become more and more aggressive surrounding licensing, and Java is now part of those discussions as not something that we didn't see before, but it's definitely becoming a new trend for Oracle.
Okay, don't know if I don't see any questions coming in.
No, but probably
No, not yet.
Okay, good.
Also,
a minute or so.
quick reminder, we offer a 1-hour one-on-one consultation with our experts, just so you know that you can simply write us an email to info@renaps.com, info@renaps.com, with your name, company, simply contact details, so we'll be able to reach out and organize that 1-hour call with you. And if there is no question now in the webinar, that is fine. I mean, you can also ask them on a one-on-one basis. Maybe you have more than just one particular question around each environment is different, and the subject could be a bit sensitive, so we understand.
Maybe you don't want to share details of your non-compliance with everyone.
Exactly.
There were one question that was asked, I think it was last week for another client. Is there any difference regarding the platform I'm using? So it was a client question. Maybe we can talk quickly about that, because it was quite interesting the last time we spoke about it.
The platform, so meaning the operating system, is that it? There's no difference in terms of licensing. So whether it's Windows, Linux, Unix, it's all the same to Oracle. The same licenses apply. The only caveat that I would add to that is around virtualization. So Oracle's tendency to say that if you have one of their products on VMware, then you need to pay for all of the hosts, just in case it gets used on one of the hosts. So that's a discussion to be had, and you should prepare yourself in advance. If that's your case, you're on VMware and you have more hosts than you have licenses, then you should definitely prepare for Oracle to come back and question that.
Okay, thank you. All right.
And
okay.
Right, I think we can wrap it up for today. So on behalf of RENAPS, I'd like to extend our sincere thanks to everyone who joined us today for our Java webinar. Hope you found the information and discussions valuable, and that also extend our special thanks to Andrew for sharing your expertise and insights with us. So, thank you very much.
Thanks for attending.
All right.
Thanks, Patrick.
Until next time. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.